Well, howdy there, young uns and friends of far lemme ask y'all something mighty important before we dive into this tale. What time is it where y'all sittin'? And where in the wide world are you watchin' from? Go on, holler it out in your minds, 'cause this here story's got a way of stretching your imagination across hills, hollers, and rivers y'all might never have seen. Now hush up now and lean in a bit, don't ya? You see, once upon a time, in the heart of the wild all frontier, there was a man folks round these parts started callin' Davy Crockett. By golly, he wasn't no ordinary feller, no sir. He had a look in his eyes like he knew every critter in the woods and every secret hidin' behind the ridges. Lordy, even the children in the cabins whispered his name, as if it carried a spark of something bigger than life itself. And I reckon they weren't wrong. Now, Davy, he grew up learning to fend for himself, and I mean real tough like. Ain't no soft city ways for him. He'd wrestle with bears in the backwoods, swim across rivers that'd make most folks' knees quiver, and hunt in a way that made old-timers shake their heads, sayin', sure as shootin', that boy's got something mighty rare in him. He carried that coonskin cap y'all ever heard about, sitting atop his head like a badge of honor, a mark that said, I'm one with these hills, and I ain't afraid of nothin'. One evenin' he was settin' by the riverbank, fishin' with nothin' but a line he'd strung himself, when little Tommy from the cabin nearby piped up, Mr. Davy, ever seen a bear that could outsmart ya? Davy chuckled, tiltin' his hat back. Why, young'un, a bear might be clever, but I'll tell you something. It ain't never had a heart full o' grit like a man raised by the woods. Ain't no creature knows the woods better than me, and that there's something a feller can't learn from books, don't you know? Children laughed. Some gasped, and Davy leaned in closer, eyes twinkling, voice low like he was sharing a secret just for the young uns, and y'all watching across the miles. Now listen here, he said. There's a feelin' out there in them hills, something wild and free. You can't cage it. You can't tame it, only respect it, reckon it, and learn from it. And when you do, well, by golly, you start seeing the world through eyes that ain't never blinked before. He'd tell stories of ridges shrouded in mist, where deer moved like whispers, and streams sparkled like silver in the morning light. Used to be, he said, scratching his chin, that folks thought the frontier was nothin' but empty land. But I tell you, every tree's got a story, every creek a secret, and every hill holds a memory of the ones who dared walk it. Dern, if you're listening close, you might even feel it yourself. By sundown, Davy would sit back, lean against a tree, and watch as the sky turned a soft amber, the children by his side hushin', as if the world itself had paused. And I reckon y'all can picture it him there, smiling gentle, speaking slow and sure, makin' even the widest holler feel like a home. Now, don't you forget, he'd whisper, a man's heart can be bigger than the woods he walks, and his courage stronger than the tallest ridge y'all ever seen. And with that, he tipped his hat, glanced at the river, and seemed to carry a little bit of the horizon in his eyes, like he'd been everywhere, and nowhere all at once. Ain't that something, friends? Makes a feller wonder what it means to truly roam free. Asterisk. Now, y'all listen close, 'cause this next bit'll take you deeper into the woods where Davy Crockett made his mark. Reckon it was a mornin' just like any other, the fog lingerin' over the hollers like it had secrets to keep. Davy was up early, stretching and cracking his knuckles, the way a man does when he's about to wrestle the day itself. "Sure as shootin'," he muttered. "Ain't no mountain too high. Ain't no river too wide." Little Susie from down the lane peeked through the trees, her pigtails swinging, and asked, "Mr. Davy, how do you know where to go when the woods look all the same?" He chuckled, his eyes twinkling like the river in moonlight. "Young'un, the woods, they speak if you're listening. Every twig snap, every leaf rustle. It's a language of its own. Dern if I can't tell which way the fox ran just by the softness of the dirt. Y'all might think it's magic, but it ain't just paying attention, that's all." Now, Davy had this way about him, a mix of charm and grit, that made folks near and far stop and watch. By golly, you could see him track a deer across a field, climb a ridge faster than any hound, and still find time to help a neighbor mend a fence or carry a basket of feed to a sick cow. He'd wink at the children. "Life ain't all shootin' and hunting. Bless your hearts. Sometimes it's about seeing the world right where you stand and lending a hand when it's needed." One day, as he wandered near a creek, he spotted a strange glimmer beneath the water. "Hold your horses," he whispered, kneeling down. He dipped his hand in, pulling out a smooth, sun-warmed stone, etched with marks like a secret code. The children gasped, shuffling closer. "By golly, this here's a find," Davy said, eyes bright. "Used to be folks thought treasures was gold and silver, but I tell you, sometimes the best treasures ain't coin. It's something that makes you wonder, makes you dream, makes your heart beat faster." He'd sit by the creek, skipping stones, telling tales of the critters that roamed yonder ridges, the sly fox, the mighty bear, the owls that watched in silence. "Every creature's got a lesson," he said, nodding slow. "Even the tiniest mouse can teach you something about courage if you're open to it. Don't you forget that, now." The children listened wide-eyed, imagining themselves running alongside Davy, sharing in the thrill of discovery, the feel of wild freedom all round them dot by mid-afternoon. He'd make his way to a hill overlooking the valley, watching the sun tip behind the trees. "Sure as shootin', I reckon this land's alive," he said, voice low, contemplative. "Used to be, folks ran from these hills thinking they was empty, but I tell ya, each bend in the river, each hollow in the ridge, hold stories waiting to be found." He leaned back, letting the wind brush his face, a smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "And I reckon y'all can picture it, Davy there, tall and steady, like he belonged to the land itself." He'd turn to the children, eyes soft but firm, and say, "Now listen, young'uns, it ain't always about the hunt or the climb. It's about seeing the beauty in the struggle, finding your way when the path ain't clear, and keeping your heart open. That, by golly, is the frontier way." Asterisk. Well now, settling in, y'all might want to picture this next stretch, 'cause Davy Crockett weren't just wandering the hills for fun. He was chasing something bigger, something that made a feller feel alive in the marrow. One late afternoon, the sun hung in low like a golden coin. He wandered into a part of the woods thick with shadows and secrets. "Hold your horses," he murmured, running his hand along the bark of an old oak. "There's something here, reckon it's waiting to be found." Little Maggie, always curious, tugged on his sleeve. "Mr. Davy, what you mean something is waiting?" Davy knelt, eyes meeting hers. "Why, young'un, sometimes the woods themselves hold lessons. Ain't always about seeing with your eyes. It's feeling with your heart." Sure as shootin', there's wonder tucked in every nook and cranny, if you got the patience to find it. He walked slow-like, letting the children scurry behind him, showing him tracks in the dirt. "See here?" he said, pointing to a set of prints. "A fox passed through last night. Ain't no creature random in these woods. Every step tells a story, and reckon a keen eye can read it. Used to be folks just stomped through, missing the tailies under their boots. Dern shame that." By golly, the way he spoke made the children lean in, ears perked, imagining foxes dancing through the night, and deer leaping over ridges like ghosts. Davy chuckled at their wide-eyed stares. "Don't you go thinking it's all fearsome out here. Some of the most amazing things in life are right under your nose, and sometimes it takes a bit o' courage to see 'em. That there's the frontier spirit, bless your hearts." Soon they came to a small clearing where the grass swayed like a soft sea. Davy dropped to his knees and pointed to the ground. "Looky here, little uns. A patch o' wildflowers, delicate as a whisper. Sure as shootin', it ain't gold, it ain't silver, but it's beauty enough to stop a feller mid-step. Life teaches in strange ways, and sometimes the quietest lesson hits hardest." One curious boy asked, "Mr. Davy, do you ever get scared?" Davy's smile softened, eyes twinkling with that old-timey charm. "Why, dern tootin' I do. Ain't no shame in admittin' fear. But reckon this, fear teaches more'n bravery alone ever could. Makes your heart beat, makes your senses shift, makes you appreciate the sun shining through them trees when it finally breaks. Don't you forget that." As shadows lengthened, Davy led the young uns to the edge of a ridge overlooking a winding river. "See that?" he said, arms spread wide. "That river's carried more stories than I'll ever tell. Folks come and go, but the land remembers. Sure as shootin', it'll teach you patience, humility, and the thrill of chasing something bigger than yourself." He leaned against a rock, gaze drifting far. "Used to be, men thought they conquered the frontier with muscle alone, but I tell you, it's heart and wits that'll see you through. And don't you forget, sometimes the strongest thing a feller can carry is wonder curiosity that won't quit, eyes wide open, and a mind ready for the mysteries that lie just beyond the next ridge." The children laughed softly, imagining themselves following Davy through the thick woods, hearts pounding with excitement and a touch of awe. "And I reckon y'all, sittin' where you are, can feel it too, like the hills are whispering and the river hummin', inviting all of us to walk a while in the boots of a man who lived wild, free and full of heart. Well now, gather round, friends, 'cause this next stretch of Davy Crockett's wandering is one that'll make your heart skip and your mind wander with him." Reckon it was a late mornin' when Davy set out, the sun spillin' gold across the hollers, and he felt that pull in his bones, that call o' the frontier that ain't never quiet. "By golly," he said, striding over rocks and roots, "a man can't help but follow the trails the land lays out for him. Little Henry, always poking his nose into trouble, piped up, 'Mr. Davy, what's at the end of them trails?' Davy squatted, his eyes shining like sunlight glinting off the river. "Why, young'un, sometimes the end ain't the point. Sure as shootin', it's the walk itself, the learnin', the feeling of the wind in your hair and the earth beneath your boots. That's the true treasure. Reckon it is." As they moved through the forest, Davy noticed a knot of wild berries shining in a patch of sunlight. He knelt down, shuffling leaves with care. "Looky here," he whispered. "Ain't nothing sweeter than a berry picked with patience, and ain't nothing more satisfying than earning it yourself. Life's full o' them lessons, young uns, sometimes small, sometimes mighty, but always worth paying attention." The children laughed, and one little gal asked, "Mr. Davy, do you ever wish you were someplace else?" Davy shook his head, grinning. "Lordy, no. Ain't no place like the hills, the ridges, the rivers that run wild. I've roamed far enough to know that the land itself teaches a feller more than any schoolhouse ever could. Reckon that's why folks remember tales of the frontier, because it's alive, and it talks to those willin' to listen." They came upon a fallen log, moss clinging to its bark, and Davy tapped it with a finger. "See this here, young uns? Used to be, this log held life ants marchin', beetles hidin', the whole world buzzin' in ways most folks miss. A feller learns respect here. Sure as shootin', life's smallest things can teach lessons bigger than a mountain." By the river bend, Davy crouched low, studying the water's shimmer. "Every ripple tells a tale," he said, voice soft like a secret. "Sometimes it's a story o' danger, sometimes of wonder. But reckon this, pay attention long enough, and the river whisper the answers to things your heart's been wondering about. Ain't no map can show what the water sees, and ain't no compass can point to the feelin' in your chest when you're part of something bigger'n yourself." Little Tommy, eyes wide, asked, "Mr. Davy, are you scared of not knowin'?" Davy chuckled, the kind of sound that makes a room feel warmer. "By golly, fear's part of it. Ain't nothin' wrong with a touch o' worry. But reckon courage ain't the absence of fear, it's moving forward, heart steady, even when your knees tremble. Sure as shootin', that's what makes a man of the frontier." As the sun began to sink, spilling amber across the hills, Davy leaned back on the soft grass, watching shadows stretch long. "Used to be folks thought strength came from muscle alone," he murmured, voice low. "But heart, mind, curiosity, and respect for the land, those are the tools of a man who truly knows the frontier. And bless your hearts, don't you forget it. Asterisk now, y'all settle in, 'cause this next bit's where Davy Crockett shows the grit and wonder that made him a legend in the hills and hollers." Reckon it was a crisp evening, the sun low like a lantern in the sky, when Davy wandered to a ridge overlooking a stretch of forest he'd never crossed before. "By golly," he said, "ain't no ridge too steep if your heart's steady and your mind's sharp." Little Susie tugged on his sleeve, eyes wide. "Mr. Davy, what's waiting up there?" He chuckled, scratching his chin. "Sure as shootin', can't rightly say, young un. Could be adventure, could be trouble, could be nothin' but a view that'll make your heart leap. Reckon the frontier's full o' surprises, and that's what makes it alive." He led the children slow-like, pointing out hollows where deer hid and hollers where foxes slinked. "Life ain't just about moving fast," he said. "It's about seeing, reckoning, and talking in every twist and turn. Dern if I don't think the land teaches patience better than any schoolhouse ever could." Soon they came upon a bend in the river where the water sparkled like crushed diamonds. Davy leaned close, eyes soft but keen. "Looky here," he whispered, "even the river carries lessons. Ain't always gentle, ain't always fair, but always there, moving forward. Sure as shooting, a feller can learn more watchin' water than fightin' it." Little Henry piped up, "Mr. Davy, do you ever get tired of wandering?" Davy's grin widened. "Lordy, I reckon I do. But ain't no weariness like the kind that comes from sittin' still when adventure's callin'. Used to be. I thought wandering was only about going somewhere. Dern, it's about knowin' yourself along the way and keepin' your heart open to every bend in the trail." They paused atop a hill, watching shadows stretch across the valleys. Davy leaned back, breathin' deep. "See, young uns, the frontier's a teacher, a friend, and a challenge all in one. Ain't nothin' more exciting than facin' a ridge or river that seems too mighty to cross, and then realizin' your own strength and tackin' it on. By golly, that's the kind of learnin' that sticks." He pointed to a cluster of trees where sunlight glimmered through leaves. "Every tree, every stone, every path tells a story," he said, voice low and warm. "Sure as shootin', listening teaches more'n talkin' ever could. And reckon this, a feller who respects the land, the critters, and the folks he meets along the way, that feller's richer than any gold digger you ever heard of." Little Maggie, always curious, asked, "Mr. Davy, do you think we could be brave like you someday?" Davy chuckled, eyes twinkling. "By golly, the heart's the only compass a young un needs. You've already got courage if you're willin' to try, and reckon that's what counts. Sure as shootin', any ridge is easier to climb when your heart's full of wonder and your mind's ready to learn." By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the ridges, Davy sat with the children at his side, quiet but alive with thought. "Used to be folks measured strength with their fists," he murmured, voice soft as twilight. "But sure as shootin', true strength comes from seeing, listening, respecting, and never losing the curiosity that makes a man feel alive in the world. Well now, friends, y'all hang on, 'cause this here's the stretch where Davy Crockett shows why the hills and hollers never forgot him." Reckon it was a late evening, the sky painted in streaks of fire and gold, when Davy wandered to a quiet grove where the wind barely stirred. "By golly," he said, voice soft like he was speaking to the land itself, "ain't no place like this to reckon with life with yourself, and with the frontier full o' secrets." Little Tommy shuffled closer, eyes wide as saucers. "Mr. Davy, do you ever feel all alone out here?" Davy chuckled, leaning back against a sturdy oak. "Lordy, there's company in the trees, the river, and hills that folks in towns can't rightly know. Sure as shootin', the land talks if you're willin' to listen. Ain't never really alone if your heart's tuned to it." He wandered slow like through ferns and moss, pointing out tiny wonders, the shimmer of a beetle's wing, a bird flittin' from branch to branch, a spider weaving a silver line in the sunlight. "Used to be folks missed the little things," he said, grin spreading. "But reckon a feller who stops to notice, who respects the small and mighty alike, that feller carries something more precious than coin, that there's wisdom, by golly, and it'll stay with you all your days." Little Susie piped up, "Mr. Davy, do you think we'll ever be as brave as you?" He tipped his coonskin cap, eyes glinting with warmth. "Sure as shootin', you will, young'un. Courage ain't something found in a fight or hunt. It's the quiet knowin' that your heart can face the unknown, the patience to watch, the will to keep moving, even when the path's hidden. Reckon that's the kind of bravery that counts." As twilight deepened, Davy led the children to a ridge overlooking the river bend where the valley stretched wide. "Look yonder," he said, voice calm and steady. "Every bend in that river, Every rise in them hills holds a story. Sure as shootin', they teach lessons about patience, wonder, and the thrill of chassin' something bigger'n yourself. Ain't no schoolhouse can teach what the land whispers if your heart's open. He leaned back, breathin' deep, eyes soft, but alight with memories. Used to be, folks thought strength was only muscle and grit. But sure as shootin', a feller learns real strength comes from curiosity, heart, and respect. And bless your hearts, don't you forget it, life's richest lessons hide in the quiet, in the wild, in the moments when your eyes are wide and your spirit free. The children laughed softly, imagining themselves following Davy across ridges and rivers, hearts pounding with wonder. He smiled, reaching out to ruffle hair and pat backs, and said, sure as shootin', the frontier's alive, and so are we when we walk it with open hearts. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And with that, Davy Crockett tipped his hat, gaze drifting toward the horizon, carrying the spirit of the wild with him. He left a trail of stories, lessons, and courage, a reminder that the world's vast and full o' mysteries, but for those willing to see, to wonder, and to respect it, life itself becomes an adventure,